They never built fear overnight. They built it like cathedrals, layer by layer, with blueprints drawn in silence and executed in whispers. The first architects of fear didn't need bricks or chains. They just needed stories. Be careful. Don't speak too loud. Don't stand out. These words were lullabies disguised as warnings. You were taught to stay small before you even understood what freedom meant. Every don't was another stone placed in the invisible cathedral of your mind. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what they counted on, you calling fear fate. As a child, you didn't question the structure. You trusted the builders, parents, teachers, preachers, politicians. They were all part of the same construction crew. Each one believed they were protecting you. But in truth, they were protecting the system that raised them too. And so, the architecture of fear replicated itself across generations, like an ancestral virus coded into language, passed through bedtime stories, classroom lessons, and polite conversations. Be realistic. Play it safe. Don't dream too big. Fear isn't just an emotion, it's an economy. And safety? That's the currency that keeps you compliant. The news magnifies danger because anxiety sells attention. Religion amplifies guilt because shame sells obedience. Education rewards conformity because predictability sells control. Fear is elegant. It doesn't need to roar. It just whispers, "What if?" And in that question, entire civilizations stay asleep. Look around. Every billboard, every headline, every trend on your feed, they don't inform you. They infect you. Every scroll is a quiet reminder that you are never enough. Never safe, never in control. That's not information. That's architecture. You can see the scaffolding in your own thoughts. The moment you hesitate to say what's true for you, the pause before sharing your art, the tremor in your chest before speaking your mind. These aren't instincts, they're design features, installed to keep you predictable. And the worst part? You maintain the structure yourself. You repaint the walls every time you apologize for existing. You reinforce the roof every time you silence a wild idea. You dust the shelves where your courage used to live and call it being responsible. But here's the paradox. They never had to build a prison around you. They only had to convince you to build one within. That's why fear works so efficiently, because it disguises itself as your own voice. The architecture of fear isn't external, it's neural. It's in the pathways of your brain that learn to flinch before it learned to think. It's in the hormones that flood your body every time you step outside the known. It's in the micro-expressions you mimic from those who raised you. And when Jung said, "What you resist persists," he wasn't being poetic, he was describing the algorithm of fear. The more you avoid the unknown, the more power it gains over you. The more you numb the feeling, the more it programs your choices. Fear doesn't just keep you safe, it keeps you small. It keeps you manageable, because an awakened mind cannot be monetized. But what happens when you start noticing the architecture? When you stop walking through it on autopilot and begin tracing the lines, the symmetry, the manipulation, you start realizing how much of your life was never yours. You start asking dangerous questions. Who profits from my fear? Who loses if I stop obeying? Who am I without the script? That's when the cracks begin to form. That's when the cathedral trembles. You can hear it right now. Something inside you shifting, a voice that doesn't belong to fear, whispering from beneath the rubble. That's the sound of you remembering. Because once you see the blueprint, you can burn it. And when you do, when the first spark catches, the entire system that fed on your trembling starts to starve. That's not rebellion, that's reclamation. And if you're still here, listening, breathing with me, you're not just curious, you're ready. Because what comes next isn't about understanding fear, it's about dismantling the architects who built it into you. So stay here, don't click away. Because once you understand who profits from your fear, you'll never fall for it again. Let's talk about the architects. Not the politicians or CEOs you see on screens, but the deeper system they serve. The one that feeds on your fear the way lungs feed on air. Governments, religions, corporations, different names, same intention. Each has learned to sculpt emotion the way artists mold clay. They don't create fear, they harvest it. They know fear keeps you scrolling, praying, buying, obeying. They know fear is the most renewable energy source on the planet, because you generate it for them. Daniel Goleman, in his work on emotional intelligence, called it the amygdala hijack. When your emotional brain senses danger, real or imagined, it overrides your logic. The body floods with cortisol, your focus narrows, and critical thinking shuts down. That's when the builders step in. They shape the narrative while you're still catching your breath. Headlines don't inform you. They provoke you. Religious institutions promise peace but sell punishment. Political campaigns ignite outrage to disguise incompetence. The entire world becomes a stage where fear is the lead actor, and your attention is the ticket price. It's not random. It's design, and this design is elegant because it hides behind what seems reasonable. They call it safety protocols, economic stability, national security. But what they really mean is control. They've learned that if they can keep you anxious, they can keep you consuming products, ideologies, saviors. Carl Jung understood this. He warned that societies suppress the shadow, all the emotions, desires, and truths they fear most, and then project that darkness onto others. That projection is the foundation of control. Divide people into tribes, feed them selective fear, and they'll never unite against the system that profits from both sides. You've seen it, haven't you? The cycle of outrage day after day. One scandal replaces another. One enemy fades, another emerges. And through it all, fear keeps pulsing. Invisible, constant, profitable. You think you're choosing what to believe, but the architecture is choosing for you. It tells you who to trust, what to buy, who to blame, who to fear. This is the hidden economy of emotion, where your anxiety is currency and your outrage is a resource. It's not even new. Ancient temples ruled through divine terror. Monarchs used execution as theater. Modern leaders use data instead of swords, but the purpose hasn't changed. Keep the masses reactive. Keep them exhausted, because an exhausted mind doesn't question. Goleman wrote that true emotional intelligence begins when awareness interrupts reaction. When you pause before responding, that pause is rebellion. Because in that silence, you reclaim authorship over your inner world. The builders hate that pause. It's the one crack they can't seal. That moment when you breathe before reacting, when you notice the manipulation instead of feeding it, that's where power returns to you. So start noticing. Notice the tone of that headline, the tension behind that advertisement, the guilt hidden in that sermon. Notice how they all make you feel before they make you think. Because when you notice, you start designing again. You stop being a tenant in the architecture of fear and start becoming the architect of awareness. But let's be honest, awareness is expensive. It costs your illusions. It costs belonging to the crowd. It costs the comfort of certainty. And yet it gives you back the one thing fear stole, agency. Jung said the individual who looks inward awakens something ancient, a light buried beneath centuries of conditioning. That light is consciousness, and it terrifies the system more than any revolution ever could. You've seen glimpses of it already, haven't you? Moments when fear loses its grip, when you suddenly see through the noise, when you realize the world's chaos isn't personal, it's orchestration. And in that realization, something changes. The architecture wobbles, because fear can't survive in a fully conscious mind. When you stop feeding it, it starves. When you stop running, it dissolves. When you stop believing it's yours, it loses its language. The builders can't reach you there, in that space between thought and awareness. That's where you become untouchable. But awareness alone isn't the end. It's the demolition phase. You've torn down the scaffolding. Now comes the rebuild, the hardest and most beautiful part. Because once you stop living in the house fear built, you have to learn how to live without walls. And that's where freedom begins. Stay with me. You've seen the blueprint. You've named the builders. Now let's design something new. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the quiet realization that the fear you've carried wasn't yours to begin with. You stretch, blink into the light, and feel that thin film of anxiety that used to coat your mornings start to dissolve. You've outgrown it. The world hasn't changed overnight. The news still screams. The market still trembles. The headlines still promise catastrophe. But something in you has shifted. The frequency has changed. You see the architecture now, and that makes all the difference. You pour your coffee and for once it tastes like presence. The silence isn't threatening anymore. It's holy. You realize you don't need the background noise of worry to feel alive. You don't need chaos to prove you care. You don't need permission to exist without panic. The mind that once obeyed fear now studies it. Like an archaeologist holding a relic, curious instead of terrified. You start tracing each fear back to its builder. This one, a parent trying to protect you. That one, a teacher afraid to question the curriculum. Another, a headline written for profit, not truth. And slowly, compassion replaces bitterness. Because you see it now. They weren't villains. They were prisoners too. Every person who passed down fear was just guarding their own cage. You can thank them for the warning, but you don't have to live inside their walls. Freedom begins in that thank you. You begin to rebuild, not by erasing what was, but by rewriting it. Instead of obedience, awareness. Instead of reaction, reflection. Instead of fear, curiosity. Curiosity is sacred. It's the soul's rebellion. When you ask why instead of what if, the old architecture collapses. When you wonder instead of worry, the mind starts expanding again. Carl Jung believed that the goal of life is individuation, becoming whole. Not perfect, not fearless, whole. That means integrating every piece of you that fear tried to exile. The loud, the strange, the luminous, the inconvenient. You stop apologizing for them. You stop negotiating with your own brilliance. You start remembering that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be owned by it. So how do you live in this new architecture? By letting light in where walls used to be. By building windows instead of mirrors. By designing a mind where truth can breathe. You begin to see fear for what it really was all along. A signal, not a sentence. It was never meant to stop you. It was meant to point you back to yourself. Daniel Goleman once said that awareness is the first step toward emotional mastery. It's the moment you stop being a hostage to your emotions and start being their translator. You realize that fear is just energy waiting to be reallocated. The same spark that once froze you now fuels creation, and the world responds. People notice something in your eyes. Not defiance, not detachment, but depth. You start attracting the ones who are also done pretending. The ones who've started sketching their own blueprints too. The more of you awaken, the weaker the old design becomes. But that's not your mission. Your mission is simply to stay awake. Because here's the truth. The architecture of fear isn't destroyed through rage. It dissolves through awareness. Through each person who pauses before reacting, breathes before believing, and chooses to live consciously instead of automatically. You don't fight the system by burning it down. You transcend it by outgrowing it. So, the next time fear visits, don't slam the door. Let it in, offer it tea, ask, "What are you trying to teach me this time?" And when it answers, you'll notice the difference. Its voice no longer sounds like authority. It sounds like memory. That's how you know you're free. You walk outside and feel the air differently. Colors sharpen, sounds soften. You laugh at things that used to drain you. And when the world tries to pull you back into panic, you smile. Because you remember the truth. They built fear into your mind, but you built awareness into your soul. The old architecture can't survive that. It crumbles under the weight of your clarity. And from its dust, something extraordinary rises. Not a fortress, not a temple, but a garden. A living mind, open and unguarded. A space where love grows without permission and truth has no ceiling. This is your rebuild. No ceremony, no applause. Just the quiet revolution of being awake in a sleeping world. And when you walk away from this screen, do it softly. Carry no anger, no crusade. Just presence, because freedom doesn't need noise. It only needs you. So if this reached you, if somewhere deep inside a light flickered on, don't keep it. Share it, whisper it, live it. Because the moment one of us wakes up, the whole structure starts to tremble. And the next time the architects of fear try to rebuild, they'll find you standing there, calm, aware, unshakable, smiling in the ruins they once called control. That's how freedom begins, not with a revolution, but with remembrance. Subscribe, stay close, and keep walking with us. This is Human Wave, where silence heals, truth returns, and souls remember their power.